She chose to protect her ex instead of our relationship. I chose myself and moved across the world. When she came back to apologize, it was already too late. The day my fiancée chose her ex over me, I packed my life into 2 suitcases, signed a contract in a foreign country, and vanished so completely that when she finally came to work things out, a stranger opened my old front door. It didn't start that dramatic, of course. It started with her phone lighting up during movie night. We were on the couch, lights off, some action movie humming in the background. She was tucked under my arm, her feet buried under the blanket with mine. Then her phone buzzed on the coffee table. She leaned forward, saw the name, and for just half a second her face changed. Not a big change, just that tiny, guilty half-smile people get when they're caught somewhere between nostalgia and temptation. "Who's that?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. She shrugged. "Just Mark. Her ex. The one who taught her a lot and meant a lot but was definitely in the past. The one ID heard way too many stories about. The one she still followed, liked, and commented on across every app that existed." I didn't say anything at first. I watched her thumbs fly across the screen while the hero on TV yelled something dramatic. She laughed at one of the messages, a soft little laugh I used to think was mine. That's when something inside me started to ache. Over the next few weeks, it turned into a pattern. Her screen lighting up, the same name at the top, quick replies, little smiles. When I'd walk into the room, she'd flip the phone face down or tuck it under her leg. Nothing obvious enough to blow up about, but just obvious enough that I felt like I was losing something and couldn't prove it. One night at our usual bar, the place with the sticky tables and neon signs that never worked right, I finally brought it up. There was a game on in the background, and the bartender knew our order by heart. It should have been comfortable. Instead, my chest felt tight. "Hey," I said, keeping my hands wrapped around my beer glass, "can we talk about you and Mark?" Her shoulders stiffened. "What about him? I don't love how much you two talk. Late at night. All the inside jokes. It makes me uncomfortable." She stared at me for a second, then let out a breathy laugh, the kind people use when they think you're being ridiculous. "I'm not cutting off my ex just because you're insecure," she said. There it was. No hesitation. No softening. Just a line drawn in the sand. "Insecure," I repeated, the word tasting stale in my mouth. "I'm not perfect, but I know the difference between being controlling and asking for basic respect." ID never told her who she could be friends with, what she could wear, where she could go. All ID asked for was a little distance from a guy she used to share a bed and a life with. She took a sip of her drink and shrugged. "We're adults. We can be friends. I'm not doing anything wrong." I nodded slowly, feeling something settle inside me. Not anger exactly, more like clarity. She thought this was about my insecurity. She didn't see that it was about her priorities. "Fair point," I said, because arguing never changes a person's heart. And right then, I realized I didn't want to spend the rest of my life begging someone to choose me. I didn't say much after that night at the bar. I paid the tab, walked her home, kissed her on the forehead like nothing had changed, and then lay awake beside her listening to the tiny taps of her phone screen lighting up in the dark. I wasn't stupid. I knew what it meant when someone defended a connection that hard. It wasn't just about friendship. It was about what they were afraid to lose. A week later, I was at my desk at work when an old email thread popped up in my inbox. Subject line: Amsterdam position final check-in. ID forgotten to archive it. It was from a few months earlier, when my company offered me a promotion that would have moved me to our office in Amsterdam. Big raise, new team, a whole new life. ID turned it down. 3 times, actually. Each time I pictured her family nearby, her little niece she adored, the way she talked about growing old in the same state she'd grown up in. She didn't ask me to say no, not directly, but she didn't have to. Whenever the topic came up, she'd go quiet and say something like, "Long distance is so hard," or "I just finally feel settled here." So I stayed. I told myself love was about compromise, and that ID have other chances. Now I sat staring at that email like it was a door ID walked past without realizing it led outside. My phone buzzed. A text from her. Having drinks with Mark and some friends tonight. Don't wait up, no invitation. No, do you want to come? Just a quick heads up that she'd be out with her ex until whenever. I read it 3 times, then scrolled up through the previous messages. She'd barely texted me all day. I'd been the one sending little check-ins, small jokes, a meme or two. She'd responded with short answers and emojis. She wasn't distant enough to call it out, but just distant enough that I felt like I was interrupting something. I put my phone face down on the desk, opened the Amsterdam email, and reread the offer. The HR rep had written, "If you ever change your mind, let us know. The door's not closed on this yet." Maybe it was time I walked through a door that was actually open for me. I didn't reply right away. I gave myself a few days, like maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I just needed to talk to her again. But each conversation about Mark went the same way. "You're blowing this out of proportion. Nothing is happening. You're trying to control me." One night, after another round of that, she grabbed her coat and said, "I can't do this with you every time my phone buzzes," and walked out to meet him. I watched the door close behind her and felt this strange quiet settle over the apartment. That was the night I opened my laptop, typed out an email to HR and said, "If the position in Amsterdam is still available, I'd like to accept." I sat there with my finger hovering over the trackpad, heart pounding, like I was about to jump into cold water. Then I clicked send. Telling her about Amsterdam wasn't some big cinematic moment. There was no dramatic music, no slow zoom in. It happened on a Tuesday night while she sat at the counter eating leftover pasta out of the container. "I took the Amsterdam job," I said. She looked up, fork halfway to her mouth. "What? The promotion? The one I turned down before?" I emailed HR. It's happening." She blinked a few times, like she was trying to see if I was joking. "You're serious?" "Yeah." "For how long?" she asked. 2 years, maybe more. They're helping with the visa, housing, the whole thing. She set the fork down slowly. "And you didn't think to talk to me first?" I felt my jaw tighten. "We've talked. I brought it up 3 times. Every time you made it clear you didn't want to leave. That doesn't mean you just decide without me," she shot back. I shrugged, but it wasn't casual. It was the shrug of someone who'd already gone numb. "You decided something without me too." Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You decided your ex was worth protecting more than our relationship. You chose him. I'm just choosing me now." She stood up so fast the stool scraped on the tile. "That is not the same thing." "You're right," I said quietly. "I didn't spend months sharing private jokes with a woman I used to love while you lay in bed next to me." That hit. She looked away, lips pressed together, fingers twisting the edge of the counter. For a second, I thought maybe she'd apologize. Maybe she'd say she'd cut him off, that she'd been careless, that she didn't realize how deeply it cut. Instead, she said, "So you're running away." "I'm not running," I answered. "I'm accepting a job I earned. One I wanted before you ever walked into my life. I just stopped pretending I'm okay living smaller so you can feel bigger." Silence stretched between us. The fridge hummed. Cars rolled by outside. Somewhere in another apartment, someone laughed. "When do you leave?" she finally asked. 6 weeks. Her shoulders dropped, like ID punched the air out of her. "And what happens to us?" I swallowed. I'd been asking myself the same thing every night since ID hit send on that email. "I don't know," I said. "I know I can't do this version of us anymore. The one where I'm competing with a ghost and being told it's all in my head." She scoffed, but there wasn't much power behind it. "You really think I'm going to cheat on you?" "I think you already stepped out of this relationship," I replied. "Maybe you didn't cross every line, but you walked right up to them and camped out." Her eyes shone, but she refused to let a tear fall. That was always her way. She'd rather break her own heart than admit she was hurting. "Fine," she said, grabbing her phone off the counter. "If you want to go play European Bachelor, go ahead. Don't pretend this is all on me." She brushed past me, the faint smell of her shampoo trailing behind, and slammed the bedroom door. A moment later, I heard the muffled ping of her phone. I didn't have to guess who she was texting. I leaned against the counter, staring at the spot where Shed just been, and realized something I didn't want to admit. The part of me that used to panic at the thought of losing her was strangely quiet. It wasn't that I didn't love her anymore. It was that ID finally stopped begging to be chosen. The 6 weeks between that conversation and my flight felt weirdly calm, like the air after a storm when everything's still hanging in the balance. We didn't break up right away. We also didn't really stay together. We slipped into this limbo where we still lived in the same apartment, but our lives started running on separate tracks. She'd come home late more often, out with friends, she'd say, dropping her keys in the bowl by the door, eyes already on her phone. I stopped asking who. I stopped looking at the screen when it lit up. I just noted the pattern. Newer clothes, more makeup, perfume she hadn't worn around me in months. I wasn't perfect either. I started working later, taking on extra projects I wouldn't even see the end of. My boss was thrilled. Getting you warmed up for Amsterdam, he joked. I smiled and pretended that was the only thing on my mind. Some nights, lying on opposite edges of the bed, I'd think about reaching out, starting some kind of honest, painful conversation that might save what we had. But then I'd remember that line, "I'm not cutting off my ex just because you're insecure," and the words I needed would evaporate. 2 weeks before my flight, I signed the new lease paperwork for the furnished apartment in Amsterdam. The company handled most of it, but there were still forms, deposits, signatures. Every time I wrote my name with that foreign address underneath, it felt a little more real. That same night, we finally said the words out loud. We were in the living room, half-packed boxes stacked against the wall. ID started going through my stuff, deciding what would come with me and what would be donated. She watched me from the couch, arms wrapped around her knees. "So that's it?" she asked quietly. "You're really leaving?" "Yeah," I said, folding a shirt and setting it gently in the suitcase. "I am. And what about us?" Her voice cracked just a little on that last word. I sat down opposite her. "I don't think there is an us anymore. Not in the way there should be." She looked away, blinking fast. "You're just done?" "I'm tired," I admitted. Tired of feeling second. Tired of being told my feelings are a problem instead of something you want to understand. "I don't hate you. I'm not even mad the way I thought I'd be. I'm just finished trying to convince you I deserve to be the only person in this relationship with you." Tears finally spilled over, and she wiped them away with the heel of her hand, almost annoyed at herself. "So that's it. You're moving across the world and throwing everything away." "I'm not throwing it away," I said gently. "I'm accepting that you already did, just in slower motion." We slept in separate rooms after that. The last week blurred into logistics. Movers carrying boxes, utilities being shut off, my name coming off the buzzer downstairs. She kept her things there for the time being. Said she'd figure it out after I left. We were polite, almost formal. Two roommates whose lease was ending. On the day of my flight, she drove me to the airport. The car ride was quiet. Local radio playing, city rolling by the windows. We pulled up to the departure drop-off, and she put the car in park but didn't turn it off. "So this is goodbye," she said. "For now, at least," I answered. "I don't know what the future looks like." She laughed once, a sad little sound. "You always used to say we'd figure it out together." "I know," I said. "I meant it at the time." We hugged. It was awkward at first, then familiar, then painful. For a second, I almost told her I'd stay if she asked me, if she really meant it, if she finally chose me. But she didn't say anything. She just held on a moment longer, then let go. "Have a good life in Amsterdam," she whispered. "Take care of yourself," I replied. I walked through the sliding doors with my 2 suitcases, passport in hand, heart pounding. I didn't look back until I was in line for security, and by then her car was already gone. On the flight, somewhere over the ocean, I stared out at the darkness and thought about all the times I'd pictured building a future with her. Buying a house, maybe having kids, holidays with both our families. All those scenes just shifted, like someone had taken the same film reel and swapped out the lead actress for a blank space. I landed in Amsterdam jet-lagged, dazed, and weirdly light. A company driver held a sign with my name at arrivals. The air outside the airport was cool and damp, and the buildings looked like something from a postcard. It didn't feel like home yet. It felt like a pause between the life ID lived and the one I hadn't met. But for the first time in a long time, the only ghost I was competing with was my own past. Amsterdam didn't magically fix me. The first few months were rough. My body was in Europe, but my head was still back in that apartment, still replaying arguments in the dark and wondering if ID overreacted. I'd walk along the canals after work, watching my reflection wobble in the water, and think, did I really just blow up my life over some text messages? Work was the one place that felt solid. New office, new team, new responsibilities. My boss kept saying things like, "You're really thriving here," and I'd nod and pretend that was all that mattered. I bought a bike like everyone told me to, learned how not to get hit by a tram, figured out which grocery store sold peanut butter that tasted close enough to the stuff back home. Some nights were lonely as hell. There's a particular kind of quiet that hits you in a new country. Different language outside your window, different skyline, your phone not lighting up for hours because everyone you know is asleep. I'd get close to texting her sometimes, fingers hovering over her name, but I never hit send. I'd told myself I was done begging to be chosen. I didn't want to start that cycle again from another time zone. About 5 months in, I got a message from a mutual friend back home. "Hey, weird question. How long have you actually been in Amsterdam?" I told him. He replied almost immediately, "Wow, she really blew it." I stared at the screen. "What are you talking about?" A minute later, he called. "I ran into her last night," he said. "She looked rough. Said she hasn't seen you around in a while. Asked if I knew how you were doing over here." "Over here?" I repeated. "She knows him in Amsterdam." There was a pause on the line. "A buddy she didn't..." "Not really. Turns out, Shed stopped by my old apartment the week before. Shed finally cut him off, the ex. Apparently there'd been some fight, some line he crossed that she couldn't rationalize anymore. Our friend didn't know the details, just that Shed said, I should have chosen the man who chose me, and that she was going to fix things with me. So she went to my place. Same front step, same little crack in the stairwell railing I always meant to fix. Only when she rang the bell, some guy Shed never seen before opened the door in a t-shirt and socks, holding a mug of coffee. She asked if I was home. He glanced over his shoulder and then said, "No one named that lives here. I think you've got the wrong place. The previous tenant moved overseas months ago. I wasn't there. My stuff wasn't there. My life, at least the version of it Shed known, was gone." Our friend said she just stood there for a minute, like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. Then she thanked the guy, walked back down the stairs, and left. That night, I got a message from her. "I went by your place today. I didn't know you were really gone." I stared at that bubble for a long time. Then another one popped up. "I cut things off with Mark. I should have done it when you first asked me to. I'm sorry." My chest tightened reading that. Not because I wanted revenge or because I was happy she finally felt what ID felt. It hurt because this was the conversation ID begged for, back when it still could have changed something. I typed, deleted, retyped. Finally, I sent. "I told you I was leaving. I wasn't bluffing. I'm glad you did what you needed to do for yourself. I really did love you, but I can't go back to being the guy you choose second." She replied, "I understand. I'm so sorry." I believed her. For the first time in a long time, I genuinely believed her. But apologies don't rewind flights or unpack suitcases or unsign leases in another country. They don't unring the bell on all those nights I lay next to her wondering why I wasn't enough. We messaged a little more. Nothing dramatic, just two people saying what they should have said months earlier. Then, eventually, the conversation faded. Not with a big blow-up. Just quiet. Life went on. I learned my favorite CAF in Amsterdam, found a park bench where the sunsets hit just right, made a couple of real friends who'd only ever known me as the guy who moved here for a promotion, not the guy who ran from a broken heart. Some weekends, I'd sit by the canal with a coffee and think about how easily my life could have gone another way. Same country, same apartment, same woman. Only I'd still be wondering who she was texting under the covers. Sometimes I picture her at that old front door, hearing some stranger say I was gone. It's not a vengeful image. It's just sad. Two people who really did love each other, losing each other one small decision at a time. If there's any lesson in all of it, I think it's this. You can't keep someone on the shelf and expect them to stay there forever. You can't call a person insecure for asking for the bare minimum and then be surprised when they pack their life into 2 suitcases and actually walk away. And on the other side of that, you can't spend your whole life waiting to be chosen. At some point, you have to choose yourself, even if it means getting on a plane alone, even if it means starting over in a city where nobody knows your story. I don't know who we'll end up with someday. I don't know if our paths will ever cross again. But I do know this. The next time I build a life with someone, I won't be competing with a ghost. And I won't stick around long enough to become one.